Popular Hot Rodding, my car was on the cover with a 66 Chevelle called Goldenrod, Farmer's Goldenrod, it said on the door, and it had a blown big block Chevy in it, and it was tubbed, had center lines on it, and 2 other cars. At the top of the issue, it says Pro Street, and it says something below that. But anyway, in the article, it says, we see a new trend developing in the hot rodding world. We're going to call it Pro Street. Yeah. We feel that these cars exemplify that look.
Yeah.
And so, for me, I have the first car that was described as those words. And most importantly, I say, have you seen the words Pro Street written prior to that article?
Yeah.
Okay. I will post that online. It's like I didn't even post it.
Really?
Somebody directly below it says, I think Grumpy Jenkins had the first Pro Street car. I mean, it's just like, come on.
Because he drove it in the street sometime. Hey, welcome to Car Guy Confessions, brought to you by ARP. I'm Jeff Smith. This is my car buddy Cam Benty and car builder Steve Strope, and we're going to tell you the stories. Welcome to another episode of Car Guy Confessions with Jeff Smith. We have a very special guest.
Very.
My buddy Scott. Buddy Scott Sullivan.
My hero, Scott Sullivan.
Yeah, are both our heroes.
Yeah.
And, of course, Steve, the wonderful builder, car builder Strope.
Whatever I am.
We are here at the Grand National Roadster Show. Thanks so much to the guys at the Grand National Roadster Show giving us a spot to shoot at.
Yep.
And just really, this has been a lot of fun already.
Yeah, it's been great.
And
so many people under one roof.
Yeah. It's
I mean, literally, if you could hack it,
yes.
we could film here
Continuously.
with the amount of talent walking around out there, or the amount of history, the people walking around out here. We could literally, like fishing in a barrel, we could stick our hand out and grab somebody famous and put them in the chair. Yeah. That's actually how we found Scott. We just
snagged him.
Snagged our hand, grabbed
we
our
knew
hand
he was
out.
coming.
Came and coughed all over me.
Yeah. So let's get started, man.
Okay. What do you want to talk about?
Oh, let's talk about hydrogen power. No.
Wow.
So
I'm leaving.
Let's start way back. I don't even remember this. You might.
I don't.
Where we met?
I do not.
I don't either. It was
Street Machine
Nationals.
Indianapolis.
Probably 1979. Yeah, with the Nova, right?
The Blue Nova.
The Blue Nova.
Yeah.
Because you showed up on Saturday. The show started on Friday, but you showed up Saturday. Is that true?
Fashionably
I don't
late.
remember. I would say probably it was Friday because we left in typical hot rod fashion. We left at, I think, 4 or 5 in the morning to drive over to Indy. I mean, that's when we finished the car.
Yeah.
And trailered it over
right.
there and took it off the trailer and at the hotel and drove to the event.
And for those of you who don't know, this car to this day, your buddy Rhode Island Ronnie still owns the car.
Yes.
And if you were to see that car at this show, you would think it was a contemporary car built over 40 years ago. I mean, just a spectacular car. You have to remember, back in 1979, there were people building cars with tires sticking out of the wheel wells this far. And that was okay. Aesthetically, it was less than pleasing, but it was accepted.
That was the
and
norm.
Then Scott shows up with fat tires and a blower on a Chevy 2, which is not easy to do.
Shoehorning,
and
sir.
It blew everybody away.
Right, so he tubbed. He pushed the tire inside the quarter panel like a pro stock car, thus the term Pro Street, where that kind of derivative came from.
Exactly.
But Scott, it's argued.
Argued.
Some people have said.
We know what you meant.
Anyway.
It's me. What do you want? No,
Some people have said.
It's just free, right? Just bite me. So, I can say that one accurately.
Yes.
So there, in history, it has been widely discussed that there's other people who may or may not have had tires tubbed inboard on a streetcar.
Correct.
Before Scott.
Before that.
Which actually, it's a lot of fun because we have social media.
Yeah.
And I do belong to a number of social media sites that are geared towards pro street cars.
Yeah.
Now, and actually think of, the superheroes, Rocky Robertson, blah, 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 but mostly Rocky in particular, will not belong to that club because those people are maniacs.
Yeah.
And one of the best things though, Rocky still, creeps on it.
Yeah.
Because it's inevitable. Every month and a half, someone will post who built the first pro street car.
Yeah, yeah. And then the fight is on.
Instantly goes insane.
Yes.
And one of the funniest things about that is it eventually turns into, well, in 1866, my great-great-grandfather had a Constow wagon. He had 2 sets of wagon wheels on it underneath this thing. And it's like, it turns into who had the first tubbed car on the street.
Right.
You know what? That question is impossible to answer.
Exactly.
You're not going to figure that who that is.
So that being said, when I am discussing this matter with people, I go, here's how I view it. I don't know, and maybe no one will know who was the first, but it is, for me, easy to say the first person to bring it into the light, being featured in a magazine and done at a very high quality level and a real street car level, not a race car with somebody threw some headlights on it. So I argue Scott is the first person to be decorated and to be recognized as a real honest pro street car of show car level, street drivable level,
right,
et cetera, et cetera.
But I mean, I can meet that. One of the things whenever someone posts something like that, and I start reading the comments, I sit there and I read it, and I'm like, oh my God, because, and this is typical internet. In 1979, I took my Nova to the Street Machine Nationals.
Yeah.
Hot Rod Magazine, Carcraft Magazine, and Popular Hot Rodding
all
photographed
shot the
my car.
Yep.
Right.
My car was in the October 1979 issue of all 3 magazines.
All 3 books at the
same time.
That's a coup right
That's
there.
kind of like Bruce Springsteen on the cover of Newsweek and Time in the same week.
I didn't
right?
get quite the royalties. And I was kind of upset about that. I mean, at first you're like,
where's my check?
But anyway, so in Popular Hot Rodding, and I had the photograph of the magazine on my phone.
Yeah.
In Popular Hot Rodding, my car was on the cover with a 66 Chevelle called Goldenrod, Farmer's Goldenrod, it said on the door, and it had a blown big block Chevy in it, and it was tubbed, had center lines on it, and 2 other cars. At the top of the issue, it says Pro Street, and it says something below that. But anyway, in the article, it says, we see a new trend developing in the hot rodding world. We're going to call it Pro Street. Yeah. We feel that these cars exemplify that look.
Yeah.
And so for me, I have the first car that was described as those words. And most importantly, I say, have you seen the words Pro Street written prior to that article?
Yeah.
Okay. I will post that online. It's like I didn't even post it.
Really?
Somebody directly below it says, I think Grumpy Jenkins had the first Pro Street car. I mean, it's just like,
What?
come on.
Because he drove it in the street sometime with it.
Correct. Well, and actually, do you remember Jack Roush?
Uh-huh.
Oh,
the
with
silver
the
74 Mustang 2.
That 74 Mustang 2, yeah.
And then people will say Gary Kolofsky's car.
Yeah.
Which was 1977.
Yes.
But Gary
Is that the
Kolofsky's
Cuda?
car.
No, the black 55 Chevy.
No,
Oh, the
but
black 55. Who had the Cuda with a Lenco in it?
It was a Challenger.
A Challenger. It was an e-body.
Lisk.
Yeah.
Lisk.
Yes.
He was
Midwestern
from,
boy.
He was from Detroit, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. That had center lines on it. And
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
White vinyl
Badass
top.
car.
Yeah,
Badass
with a
car.
Lenco.
Oh,
Yeah, it had a
boy.
white vinyl top.
Lenco on the street.
And when was that?
I believe
Ish.
earlier than me. I believe.
Yeah,
You're right.
Probably 77, 80.
Yeah.
So the stuff was prowling around, but not
absolutely.
decorated as
Correct. It
Pro
wasn't
Street.
called Pro Street.
Right.
But then, like I say, I mean, if you ask any question at all, people will twist that question, answer it the way they want, on and on and on.
Exactly.
And there are, at any given time, there are 200 comments every time.
Yeah.
I mean, and some of the comments are, I'm going to go get the popcorn. I mean, it's just like, here we go.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Well, and then the car went on, deservingly so, to get in Hot Rod later on chosen, along with your Cheese Whiz. He has 2 of the top 10 cars of the decade.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So that's such an impact, and kind of springboarding off that, that's why you were so influential to me, because just to make you feel old, In '79, I was 11, and
Well, we were only
So-
13.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
You were way behind.
And
Punk neighborhood
so
kid.
I'm looking at this stuff, and of course, hot rod and carcraft and popular hot rodding, and there's plenty of different build styles and different things going. Some guys are more wild than others, and but I had always leaned towards. I always liked Scott's design sense because it's very clean and uncluttered, and very purposeful, but yet horrifically crazy detailed, finished off.
Yes.
And so I had my own thoughts of how I wanted to do things, but taking from one of my music heroes, a bass player named Jaco Pastorius, he said in an interview a long time ago, good musicians don't borrow, they steal.
Yeah.
You take the idea, but you make it your own.
You make it your own.
Right.
Spit it out your way.
Yeah.
So
that should be.
Scott's stuff always
But let's take
gave me that influence to do it my way. But
let's take all this chest pounding and shift the conversation slightly to you had mentioned you were 11.
yeah,
People constantly complain that the youth of today are not interested in hot rods. Mm-hmm. Guess what?
Yeah.
There aren't 11-year-old kids who see the things that you saw.
Yeah.
The things that
Yeah.
I saw. They don't see hot rods, a 57 Chevy with a straight axle, parked on the side of the
Cruising
road.
down the street.
Race
Yeah.
car.
Yep.
They don't see that stuff now. So
Yeah.
it makes sense that they aren't interested in that.
Yeah.
Over and above the computer, blah, 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 video
Right.
games. But that's...
And also because I think that there's now, like right now, there's so many other things to talk about. There's electric vehicles, and Mike Copeland's doing stuff with hydrogen on a Hemi or an LS motor. There's just all these alternatives that you could still do as hot rods, but now it kind of, how do I say this? It maybe makes it more generic, I guess. Or,
It's not very
splits
sexy.
splits them off in different areas. So I think that there's probably there are some extremely talented people,
Absolutely.
out there doing it. The young guys that are just
We're
fantastic.
seeing this weekend.
Yes.
here we are.
Yes. Yeah.
There's a lot of talent.
Yeah,
coming
and
up.
there are plenty of young hot rodders, but just not as many.
Not as many.
as
Yeah.
there were.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess all the more reason to stick around and keep doing stuff, right?
Okay.
Okay. So one of the things I like to do is always assemble an engine with ARP bolts, and it's not just because they're sponsors, but because it really does work. And the stuff is fantastic. I never have to worry about it. Steve, you building cars too.
Yeah, actually, it's part of my baseline design plan when I'm building a car that's going to be shown or featured in a magazine. It's part of the plan
Right.
to have that little bit of diamonds all over the engine bay or in the suspension.
Yeah, the stuff is beautiful. I remember a long time ago, I built the first time I ever touched it, 69 Z28. All of the water jacket holes had stripped out, and I learned about ARP studs.
So check them out at arp-bolts.com or check out their catalog. You'll find everything you're looking for. Can we jump ahead to your latest creation?
Creation.
To the 54.
Oh, my 54 Chevy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you could talk about that for some time. Which,
So we just did a feature for Hot
Right,
Rod. They
right.
shot it, and they asked me to write it, and we went over a bunch of stuff, and we had some fun with it. And but I mean, the thing that I thought that was that as I was writing the story, it dawned on me that so I went back to the front and rewrote my introduction because it's not a pro street car,
no,
it's not a pro touring car,
no,
and it's not a custom.
no.
No, but it is all three. And how many times, because I started thinking about this, and I'm not the right person to answer this question. I'm sure there are other cars that would qualify. But the point being is like, this is really interesting. I had never thought about doing that, so I started putting words on the computer. I can't say words on paper anymore because we do it electronically. But it's like, this is interesting, and I'm sure that was at the very front of what you were trying to do because you have a vision before you even start, right?
Yes, and it's funny because everything that I build, I don't think about labels.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and actually, it's
Yeah.
funny because Kevin and Doyle and I talk about this a lot. I build hot rods.
Yeah.
That's
You know,
all they are
I was
is
just
hot
about to
rods.
ask
Yeah.
you, do you consider the
Yeah,
Chev
absolutely.
a hot rod?
A hot rod.
absolutely.
That's all it is.
Sure.
It's a hot rod.
Yeah, yeah,
But and frankly, it's funny to have the provenance of, oh, Mr. Pro Street Guy, blah, 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 and to now talk about pulling away from that a little bit. And when I say a little bit, because people do accuse my 54 of being a pro street car. It has a 16 by 11 inch rear wheel. It has about 10.5 inches of tread, but it is tucked under the fender wells, and it's really low. So it has that pro street look. Right. But guess what? I mean, take it from somebody who's been all over the country in a pro street car. I don't care how well it drives, how well it rides, how well it runs. It's going to walk in the ruts of the road because the tire is wider than the ruts of the road. My 54 Chevy does not do that. It drives like a perfectly normal car.
Well, and how many miles do you have on it now?
I don't know that of all of my gauges, we never hooked up the odometer.
Okay, but
or speedometer.
I think 5, 6, 7, 8,000 miles.
Truthfully, 4,000 probably.
Okay. But still,
probably. Yeah, we went on Power Tour.
That's a lot. Yeah, we went on Power
which
Tour.
how many miles is Power Tour? They talked about it. 1,100, 1,200 miles.
Okay. Yeah. So there you go.
But one of the things that I've been doing a lot, especially with all the COVID stuff going on, there's not a lot of events and stuff. I will literally get up on Saturday and or Sunday morning, 9:30 in the morning, jump in my car by myself and take off. And not get home until around 6 or 7 at night. And it's, I mean, I live, and I've done a few social media posts about photograph out the windshield because, people consider Ohio flat and boring, et cetera, et cetera. If you get to southern Ohio, it's really pretty.
Rolling hills.
And so I will go out and, on state routes and be like, just drive around. And love it. Power steering, power brakes.
For those of you who may not know, so it's a 54 Chevy, 427 LS motor based off an LS3, and a 6-speed, a manual 6-speed Magnum 6-speed, and a 9-inch, and the big tires.
Correct. Correct.
And also taking a car that I always thought was, and I put this in the story, clunky. Clunky. And when you got done with it, it was not. It was not.
Well, and that's one of those things.
And it was all very mild things. You didn't chop the top and do all that crazy stuff.
No, you just have to look at things from an artistic eye, which I will admit to having, and see you can't even really call it beauty, the quirkiness in the car, and say I can make this cool. Because I've always liked 54 Chevys, always. So,
and it's also trimming away. With the beam counters and how the car changed from its first initial in white and the master stuff he does. For those of you, get online, look at his car, wait for the new issue, Hot Rod, to come out, and study that grill, study his dash. How did you move the dash? How much did you move the dash?
Everything was moved to the left an inch.
1 inch.
So
cut
cut
everything
the dash out,
to move it 1
roll it back
inch
in.
so that the gauge cluster sat correctly in relation to the steering column. That is somebody paying attention to a detail and making it right, because from the factory they didn't care. It's like, put it in there and it looks pretty good.
No, they had a lot of stuff that they had to stuff in there.
Right, lots. and quickie, bullet point the grill to me, front end.
54 Chevys have grill teeth. I love that. Customizers put a extra tooth in between each teeth for a total of 9. Or if they're really custom, they put a tooth between those teeth for a total of 13. And I like 9, but it just has a custom look. But I love the teeth. So I thought, what if I just rearrange them, because it's easy to just throw teeth on it. But if you start from a clean slate, I rearranged them and I did 7. And I'll tell you something I do a lot, in which
teeth being the vertical bars.
The vertical bars,
right? The vertical bars across
molars.
the.
But anyway, But one of the things that I do, and I started to ask if you ever have the opportunity, or if you do, Photoshop. If you have an idea, I will Photoshop the idea.
Right, sure.
And I took a 54 Chevy, straight on front end shot, and I rearranged the teeth and made a 7-tooth grill. Then I made a 9-tooth grill, and then I put all three of the vehicles on top of each other on the computer screen. I took a picture, and I sent it to a girl I was dating that says that she's not a Motorhead girl, but she grew up in that stuff.
Yeah.
She is.
Yeah.
But anyway, and I said, which is correct? And she said, top's not enough, bottom's too many. And I was like, correct. So anyway, that's how the 7-tooth grill.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Anything, bumpers, trim markers, everything else.
Well,
moved
and there's
around
something
there?
else there, and it's funny how I want to say your tastes mature, but I don't really want to say that. I've never considered having a car with bumper guards. You know, everyone wants a one-piece bumper on their car with a hood ornament. Oh my God!
Yeah.
But I wanted all that stuff on my car. Now, when I look at a bumper guard, I'm like, oh my God, the art in that. But it's a little clumpy.
Yeah.
So I just cut them down.
So you
Shorten
them
it.
up.
Shorten
them
it.
up, okay.
Then on the rear of the car, and I had to learn all this stuff, you have 2 bumper guards and then something that connects them, and your license plate bolts to that.
Okay.
The thing that connects them is an overrider.
An overrider.
Now,
I've never heard that term before. That's interesting.
well, I kind of made it up just now. But anyway, so I cut my bumper guards down and narrowed my overrider. And now you put all that together, and it doesn't look clumpy
Doesn't
anymore.
look clumpy anymore, yeah.
It's a little piece of art.
Yeah, yeah.
But, and one of the other things that I do that I make fun of myself about, so now I'm looking at the back of my car, and I thought, once again, you always take all the emblems off. I want a Chevy emblem on the trunk lid.
Yeah.
So I put the Chevy emblem on the trunk lid where it belonged, and I thought, that looks too high. I moved it down 2 inches. Perfect. Who the hell would ever see that?
Yeah, right, exactly.
But it's like, no,
Yeah.
I like, that's where it is. That's
Or
where it
like
goes.
your gas doors, where you had the classic 55 Chevy gas door on the side of the quarter panel. You took it off and put it behind the taillight,
Right.
and then hit it like a la 56 Chevy.
Correct.
You know, and if you don't know those cars, you would never pick up on that. Yeah.
No. Yeah.
it's
Well,
very
I've
cool.
been at a gas station. People, I forgot the cars did that. Yeah, me too. But I couldn't figure out how to put gas in it. So I cut this hole in my taillight.
Yeah. Yep.
I can go anywhere I want now. It's crazy.
I don't put gas in my car. I just drive it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had him push it here the first time.
But all of this that he's telling you about is a master class in restraint, a master class in positioning and repositioning for the better of the overall image, not for the sake of showing off fabrication talent.
A lot of people do
There's
that
a
now.
lot of people. There's a lot of guys with so much talent, and they'll just make the
Did I
car
tell you to shut your phone off?
horrible. I'm just going to keep talking like nothing's happening. And could you please get that?
There we go. I got it.
Hand me the phone. I'll tell her.
Well, and then the other part of this whole thing is, and you brought it up a while back in one of our other podcasts, but stance, right?
Well, he's
The master.
The master.
of stance.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll be
there's-
here all week.
There's a couple of cars that I was lucky enough to be when he pulled in either Canfield, Ohio, or wherever I was, and it's before I knew it was him. The first one was the black 57.
The black 57. Yes.
You could fly me back to that field fairgrounds, and I can tell you right where I was standing, and right when you slinked in around behind the where the grandstands were for the horsing. You slinked around. I went to my friend Sean. I ribbed him. I go, "That's Sullivan. I know it." Sure enough, he pulled up, came in the field. He gets out grinning like the cat that ate the canary. I'm like,
Yeah.
dude,
Well,
just
one of-
makes a bad
Great
motherfucker of a
car.
car, man.
You know, one of
He's-
the things about that in particular that's really interesting, and I'll tell you when I learned this, is the Henry J.
Yeah.
And the point is that
another
I
awesome car.
Another fantastic car. Yes.
always used to say a car and the stance, an inch matters. Well, yeah, an inch matters.
Sure.
I decided to take the wide white walls off the Henry J, which it was a plan all along. Take the wide white walls off the Henry J and put Halibrands on it. So it was time to do that. I switched the wheels to tires, and the tire sizes were a little different than they were in the rear.
Uh-huh.
And it was just hammered in back.
Yeah.
And I thought, doesn't have enough rake. I need to take, I think it had to, because that car is leaf springs, I think it had 3-inch lowering blocks in it. And I said, I need to put a 2-inch lowering block in it, raise it up an inch.
Yeah.
I raised it up an inch and went, well, now it's 4-wheel drive. So I made a 2.5-inch lowering block and put it in and went, perfect.
Okay, yeah.
So we're talking about a half-inch.
Half-inch, right.
Which, conversely, go to the front.
Yeah.
I built that car, the only car I've ever built with airbags.
Yeah.
The reason why was because when I pulled it in and out of my driveway, the front bumper drug.
Okay.
So I thought that was the only solution.
Yeah.
Well, I don't have much, meaning none, tolerance for airbags.
Yeah.
And the first time something screwed up, I said, you know what? I'm taking these airbags off. And I'm going to raise the front bumper 1 inch. And all I did was re-drill the mounts, move the bumper up an inch. You can't tell it.
Yeah, yeah.
And the car never drug
and
again.
that car is fantastic because if you know what a stock Henry J looks like, they always look like they're going uphill. Like you're driving on the road and they look like they're going uphill. And we were talking about this one day because I'm not a body guy at all, and I said,
How many cuts to the fender?
Yes. And
yeah. Well,
you remember what it was?
I think, frankly, it's funny because I don't remember. I tell people a story, but 2 numbers come to mind. The front fenders are comprised of 14 pieces or 21. Either one, it's a lot of pieces.
It's a lot of pieces.
So,
so
to paint the picture, the fender was actually cut into 14 pieces. We'll go the low number.
Yeah.
14 pieces, making cuts and pie cuts and making it go all over the place to still look like a Henry J.
Yes.
Fender,
but
yeah.
completely change the aggression of the car.
Yeah.
Well, in a
And
nutshell.
now it looks right. It
Now
looks like
it looks right.
should have looked like back in when they
And
built
you know
it.
what? Especially given where we're doing this in Southern California, I have to tell where that came from. In 1983, I think, I came to California for the first time. I ping-ponged around hot rod shops for a week just to, I'm in California, this is great. And I landed at Fat Jack Robinson's. And Fat Jack, I wanted to move here, or I thought I did. And so I just was looking around, and after a week of driving around, I thought, if I don't do something with my hands, Mr. Nervous, I'll go home.
Yeah.
And so I went back to Fat Jack's, and I said, I need a job.
Yeah.
And he said, man, it's around Christmas time. He said, I can't really hire you. And I said, I don't think you understand. I will work for free.
Yeah.
I said, just give me something
Give me something to do.
Yeah. And again, this wasn't the story I was telling, but I was there a day, and Jack comes up and he goes, it's obvious you know what you're doing. I can't have you working for me for free. So anyway, I think it was $5 an hour.
Yeah, yeah.
But anyway, so I worked for Jack, and Greg Morrell, who should be a well-known name around here, worked at Fat Jack's. And I drove my Champagne Chevy 2 to California then. Hammered on the ground, louvered hood, rally wheels, no door handles. Right. So, first of all, I'm from Ohio. Second of all, I'm driving this hammered car. And I meet Greg Morrell, and he owns a Henry J and an Anglia.
Ah, yeah.
Well, we're instantly friends.
Right.
So we were talking one day, and I said, I've loved those cars my whole life, but you can't get a Henry J low. If the rocker panel is touching the ground, the front bumper is 6 inches from the ground.
Yeah.
And Greg goes, you just have to droop the nose. And I said, what? And he said, just droop the nose. I said, you can't droop the nose. The car will look broke.
Yeah.
And he said, here, let me show you. His car was in the back, and I don't recall, we pushed it out in the parking lot, and then he had a fiberglass front end. We drug it out, during lunch, and stuck the nose on there, and I was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Because the Henry J, starting at the headlight, is really high, and then it arcs down.
Tapers down.
So you can drop that, and now it's just a continuous arc as opposed to a straight line and then an arc.
Okay.
So in 83, 85, whenever it was, I never forgot that.
Yeah.
So fast forward to 1998, I believe, and a gentleman approaches me about building a Henry J. And I said, we got to droop the nose.
Yeah.
Because I really don't know. Well, I'm sure there are some race cars that are done.
Yeah.
But, and I never got the opportunity to tell Greg that story, so I hope he hears it now.
Because it's just great stuff, because that's the kind of stuff, when you see that car, it just looks right. Right. But yet, people don't realize the enormous amount of work. Because the the 21 pieces, whatever it was, he had to do it on the other side too.
Oh yeah.
And then cut the hood up. To
Well,
make
as it
all-
turns out,
Yeah?
all I did, the hood slid forward,
Yeah?
and I had to add 2 inches to the cowl.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
So the
That was
hood's
it.
relatively small.
Wow. Amazing. Yeah. So,
And it's very weird, by the way, to hear him say, I didn't know that story. Well, I knew parts that you came out and met up with Fat Jack.
Right.
But I didn't know you drove the Chevy 2.
Yes.
And before I moved out here, I had my El Camino done, but I didn't want to take it out first. So I got this 72 Olds Omega, which looks like a Chevy Nova.
Right.
And I blatantly copied your Chevy 2. Almost the same color. I use Ford's Fawn Beige Metallic.
Mine was a
Right.
Lincoln color.
I use that. I got some bucket seats out of a Chrysler LeBaron, which are extremely comfortable. Put them in, dyed the interior in the saddle brown, had a straight 6 in it. I didn't louver the hood, but you'll be proud of me. I'd drop that thing so low, I'd be going over, the little separation from highway to bridges, and it would knock my transmission into neutral. That thing was
not
low.
to say how low it was, but
That was low. I looked just luckily by random. I had a whole bunch of VCR tapes converted to digital.
Yeah.
And I hadn't watched all through of them. I found a minute and a half of me filming, and I had both the El Camino and the Olds in my driveway, my dad's driveway, and the front bumper, I filmed it. The front bumper is at my shin. It's like, it's low. So when I came out to California for the first time, I was driving my I Wish I Was as Cool as Scott Sullivan car. So that's neat to hear you drove
was a
that thing
six-cylinder
out
car
here.
too, wasn't it?
Yeah, and so was
Yeah.
mine. Mine
So-
was a 6-cylinder car.
So we're going to do something a little bit different here. We're going to split this thing up.
Yeah.
And
We're gonna do
and
musical
we're gonna bring
chairs.
in another guest and add a dynamic here. This will be kind of we're staying with Scott. Scott's gonna stick with us.
Super-
yeah.
super-
I thought I was on lunch break.
And right, is that what we're doing?
Who's going to eat the sandwiches?
So stick with us, and we'll be right back. We'd like to introduce you to a new sponsor of ours. This is InTheGarageMedia.com. Some friends of ours that were in the print magazine business before and now started their own books. We got All Chevy Performance, Classic Truck Performance, and Modern Rotting.
Yeah, these are awesome books. They've got lots of educational and entertainment things in them, and they're even good enough quality to include Steve Strope quality vehicles.
Maybe.
He's
we'll
working
see if
up
I'm
to it.
allowed in there.
That's right.
I don't know.
So in the Garage Media, InTheGarageMedia.com. Check them out.
Check them out.
Get your subscription, sit and read it.
And with ARP, it's not just a lot of intake manifolds, studs for heads, but they also have a humongous selection of American and metric that we use all throughout the car, even large bolts that we use on the suspension components, because you want that same strength, that same durability and reliability, plus the beautiful looks.
And stuff outside the catalog.
Right, they have a special order program where if you're a builder and you need some special stuff made, they can do that for you. So it's an amazing, amazing company to work with.
So check them out at arp-bolts.com or check out their catalog. You'll find everything you're looking for.
So we have some changes in the lineup. This is not Jeff Smith.
Standing in.
This is Bob Florine. Bob does a lot of things with nuts and bolts, mainly a company called ARP. You may have heard us mention it once, twice, 3 times. Anyway, Jeff had to, I don't know, pee or something. So he left. And now you're screwed. Because I'm going to run this thing for a little tiny bit. So Bob is one of my best friends. Not sure why he puts up with me or why anybody does, but I am thankful.
I'm not sure why anybody puts up
Exactly.
with you.
And then we left Scott because, it's Scott Sullivan.
guy.
Hey,
Yeah.
he's kind of like a human air freshener or something. It's good in the room. I may consult this a couple of times while we're doing this. So, there's finger pointing, there's hands, there's reason Bob needs to get closer to the god dang microphone because no one can hear him.
Am I close enough?
Yeah. Wow, don't be creepy.
That's excellent.
This is going well already.
Nice.
So,
Well, it's
okay.
professional.
Why can just be Jeff? Welcome to Car Guy Confessions.
And you even said it better. Because Jeff usually just myrtle. How far into this are we already? I need to know. Are we done? Wow, we're so screwed. So, So anyway,
I'm new to radio.
Are we doing radio?
no,
What?
Is this radio?
check please.
Aren't you going to ask me
No,
some
it's
questions
again.
about that crystal ball?
You know
Come on,
what?
move
Again, I've
along,
said this
Spark Plug.
before in other episodes. It's free, so
I've watched the show, and I've watched you promote ARP products.
Sure.
And it's no secret that we're all friends.
Sure, yeah.
But most importantly, I've been using ARP products for a long time, and to be honest, for the aesthetic reason.
Yeah,
But a
it's jewelry.
combination of aesthetic and, of course, there are strength applications. But, I mean, I have my 55 Chevy Cheese Whiz is 33 years old. And if you open the hood, and which I had initially built it without ARP bolts, but everything under the hood is ARP. If you open the hood of that car, it looks like it was built last week. And you can't, an average bolt is going to corrode, et cetera, not to mention the aesthetic part of it, how pretty they are.
Yeah.
You'd mentioned jewelry, and we were discussing some of the cars that we were looking at here at the show. And the fact that, and I understand people's frame of mind in this respect, but if you look at an ARP bolt, it's very, very distinctive. You know it's an ARP bolt.
Yeah.
But there are people that will look at that bolt and think, yeah, that's stuff of the future. Art Brain over here doesn't think that way. It's an attractive bolt that has no, I don't associate that with spacecraft. So you can use it on anything.
Yeah.
And actually, you can cosmetically alter it if you wish. Just look.
As some people do.
Really?
Yeah.
I have some that are glass beaded. I have some that are faced off. I have some that have a black coating similar to black oxide.
Yeah.
And again, there you go. To that many
and you
more
get choices
options
of
to
6
use
point
it.
or 12 point, which gives different looks.
Absolutely, yes.
And we are doing some internal hex and some internal 12 point and some variations. We do some torques. We make some titanium product that is used in various
HRE?
places through the industry.
HRE wheels, the 3-piece wheels.
Yeah,
are
they're
your
using a lot of titanium
your
in their
titanium
wheels.
fasteners. Yep.
And so, and to the aesthetic, on a, we're at the Grand National Roadster Show right now, and some of the best cars in the world are here at the Grand National Roadster Show, and the aesthetic part that they were talking about, you can tie a whole car together with ARP bolts. It becomes part of that aesthetic.
You know
it
what?
ties everything together. It gives a consistency
I
throughout
got a story
the car.
absolutely fresh and 2 hours old. We're showing a car we have here is a car we built for Joe Rogan. It's a Nova. And I was showing a judge the car. Popped open the trunk and to show him inside because the trunk was closed for some photos. And there's a fuel cell in there and a bunch of other stuff that, of course, all ARP. And he went, you know what? I really like that you have you carry the theme of the fastener throughout from the front of the car all the way to here. That's really attractive. So, real world application of what he's saying. I just had a judge tell me that unsolicited 2 hours ago. He noticed the hardware, noticed we had it everywhere he had looked, and it gave the car cohesive. It was part of the thing. He went, wow, you don't have like super shiny bolts on the engine in the back here or whatever. He had noticed that and made a point of telling me so. So very, very true. Extremely true.
Yeah, and I can point you to many examples. I mean, Troy
Sure.
Japania
Yeah.
does it. I mean, it's on and on and on. All friends of ours in the industry.
Sure.
And some of the top cars that have ever been judged have had that continuity throughout the whole car.
I like
And it
continuity.
ties it all together.
I try to make sure my socks match even.
It's in that people don't have matching socks now. It's considered
Off the
an
rail.
in thing. Now, I always wear black socks, so it doesn't matter. you
So
know.
do I. I just
One may be
still
short,
try to make
one
it
may
match.
be long, but you know.
This might not be a good topic, but you said continuity, and it's always the first thing that comes to mind. I'm sorry.
I took the infamous 57 Del Rio wagon back to Scott because I wanted to do power tour. Steve had builds that were critical. that he
Yeah, we had
worked
some
on,
time frame nonsense going on.
and I needed to make changes to the car before I went on power tour. So I said, Scott, can you do some work on the car before we go on power tour? And I don't know that you other guys have noticed it. I'm sure you have. But the past year and a half, parts have been incredibly hard to acquire. You're waiting months, sometimes many months, to get parts. And so the wheels, the whole thing that started this, I wanted to run a different wheel. I had a wheel on it that Steve Stanford designed, and I absolutely love the wheel. But about half of the people that see the car just hate the wheel. So I wanted to try a different wheel.
You went with a more traditional
Yeah, more traditional.
hot rod wheel.
Hot rod type
So now
wheel.
he's waiting for rims.
And
So
all
we
four of the
were waiting
match.
for, yes, all four match. That's a good thing. Continuity.
Right, correct.
Yeah. So we're waiting for wheels. So we didn't get the wheels before Hot Rod Power Tour, but we did get the shocks and springs changed. And
We had to change the brakes.
and we had to change the brakes
of
because we're
changing the
going down
wheels.
in the wheel. Yeah.
Right.
Anything else you'd like to add on that front? Anyway, we go out on Hot Rod Power Tour, and it was quite an experience. Scott had the 54 and brought along a friend who we called Rent-A-Rick.
Because he rode with Bob sometimes and me sometimes. It's like a rent-a-friend,
Rent-A-Rick.
rent-a-Rick. His name was Rick.
Yes, Rick Roberts, by the way, and he did cleaning.
See the guy with the Oldsmobile?
Various things that we should have been doing ourselves. Rick was so appreciative to be on Power Tour with us that he was falling all over himself to work on our cars and clean them and polish wheels and everything else.
Slate
Bob and I worked on our
It was
tans.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
actually-
and Scott and I were sitting around going,
Got any more lotion over there? But
I don't want to know.
I know you don't want to know about the lotion.
Lotion.
Steve had asked about Rick Cox.
yes,
Yeah, see, that's
Yes.
Radio Rick.
yeah,
That's not Rent-A-Rick, that's
Well,
Radio Rick.
and he became navigational Rick.
No, he
before
was
that.
Navigational Rick first, but Navigational Rick was too difficult to say, so we decided to just call him Radio Rick.
Anyway, the Three Musketeers, or the Four Musketeers. I guess we were.
I'm a bad
We
host.
had a great time. Rick Cox had a
61 Olds.
Olds, with a big block Chevy in it, with the kaleidoscope
Crower.
intake.
Crower, right?
Where the
Calliope.
Sounds like a Crower.
Calliope.
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 Great, you'd be looking through.
Big words.
Yes. Okay. Yes, Calliope, and we just had a blast.
We did.
We
had
really had
good
a
time.
blast. It
Rick
was a
Cox
good
is an
time.
old Pro Street friend. I did artwork for him on a Pro Street Cavalier around 1992,
The
I
red,
believe. Yes.
red Z24.
Yes.
I know way too much of this crap.
And
Way
Rick Cox is a super nice guy.
Single
and-
4-barrel on a big block.
Well, it has
Dominator.
nothing to do with him being a nice guy, but perhaps.
No, I'm just
At any rate,
remembering the car.
At any rate,
Humor me.
Wait, should we call him? Do you want him to
Go
remember
ahead.
you? I'm telling the story. Stop.
I'll get him on the
Anyway,
phone.
so we ran into Rick Cox at in Dayton.
Dayton, yeah.
Stop on the power tour.
The first stop on the Power Tour.
Second.
No, second stop. Yeah,
so,
you're right.
so we hadn't seen him in years, and he was by himself in this big block Chevy powered injected Olds Pro Street car. And I said, well, just drive with us because we're not going to drive on the same roads as the Power Tour. And so it seemed like he was the best for us to try and figure out when we were trying to figure out the incorrect route to take. Rick was good at that, so he became Navigational Rick at that time. Now, I should also interject, because this is a fun part of the story, absolutely in love with this car. Here's, a Calliope fuel injected big block Chevy. He's driving the wheels off this thing. It's converted, electronic, et cetera, et cetera. So we started teasing him immediately. We would stop for the night or even a hotel, and I'd say, Rick, you gonna lock your car? And he'd say, why? And I'd say, you never know. That engine could end up gone out of that car at any time. And Rick's like, what? And I said, nah, I got to have that big block. That's a pretty neat. So we'd all laugh or whatever. So then, of course, motels, you better pull that thing around front. You're going to end up, something's going to happen with that engine. So we
constantly ribbing
yes.
the guy. I mean, constantly.
Yeah.
Every stop to eat, stop to the motel, anywhere we stop for gas.
Well, you have to be consistent in your nagging. At any rate, we went through the entire power tour, just had an absolute riot. But then, like I said, decided that navigational work was really too much. And his voice is like, good evening, thank you very much. I mean, we're like, this guy needs to be on the radio. So he hence has become Radio Rick. Now, the best part of this story, as I ramble on and on and on, is I have that engine in my shop.
Scott got the engine. Yes. Yeah.
And I didn't even, I sort of stole it.
Well, I thought the best part of the trip is we had 0 issues on any car the whole trip. We never turned a screwdriver or a wrench the whole trip. And it was fantastic. and it's what makes these road trips fun.
Right.
And when you think about hot rods, you think about, boy, I'm going to have to wrench on that when I get back. I've got to fix something when I get back. I've always
Well, you could do it, Henry. Jeff and I.
And I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but we had none of that. None of it.
You can wrench on your car while you're driving it. Jeff and I drove all the way across the country picking up parts of a 55 Chevy 32 years ago.
Yeah, something like that had never been done at that time, though.
No.
The technology that's available today wasn't available then. You know as well as I do, 10-second cars were trailered everywhere.
Right.
You and Jeff took a 10-second car and drove it across the country.
I did. We did.
Yeah.
I was there.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was back when they were all trailered everywhere. So
well, one of the things that Jeff and I...
It's not surprising that parts were falling off of the car.
Yeah, one of the things that Jeff and I talk about a lot is the fact that they devoted 18 pages in Hot Rod Magazine to that story, and they could have devoted an issue with the stories. There were so many stories that were left out. And Jeff, we had plenty more that we could tell at any given time about the things that had happened on that trip. And then I had to go home.
So you had to drive it back?
I had to drive it home. And I actually, and that's funny too, when you consider the buildup and hype and everything about SEMA now. Oh yeah, I'm doing a SEMA build. Yeah, SEMA. I drove my car from LA, put it in the SEMA show, and then drove it from there home. It was just a stop on the way home.
Unheard of.
Yeah.
Especially a car that could run 10-second quarter miles.
Dude, what did it do?
Honest 10-second quarter miles.
10.26?
Yeah, it was 1081, 131.
And that was shutting it off early, and at a drag strip, LA County Raceway, where it was known for sand all over the track and many other issues. And it hadn't been prepared properly before you guys ran it, had it?
No, and actually, to this day, one of the funnier things, if I do a burnout in the car or whatever, the front of the car doesn't lift at all, and it has a 4-link in it. I have to adjust the top bar, the forward part of the top bar up to get the car to lift. And when we were at the racetrack, and we were like, this thing has you can literally run faster than it would take off the starting line. And so we were like, we need to adjust the 4-bar. It was 98 degrees and 1,000,000% humidity, and I was like, nah, I don't want to go fast that bad. But truthfully, one of the things that I wanted, I was adamant that I wanted a 10-second time slip. And it had 150 or 180 shot nitrous system. But the first, and knowing that the car didn't have a roll cage in it, we were going to creep up on that time. And so we literally went a couple tenths each pass, faster and faster. and Jeff made a pass. It was 11:08 or so and 126. And I went up in the tower, and it was, I guess, the owner, Bernie, his wife was running the clocks. And I opened the door, and she said, "Did Bernie say anything to you about going faster than 120 miles an hour without a roll cage?" And I said, "No, he just said we couldn't go 10 seconds. And she said, "Okay." So we went down, and the next pass was 1081 and 131. I walked in, opened the door, and said, "Thanks, bye." But when we got back, Ken Thurm, renowned pro stock driver or owner, racer, or whatever, was supposed to help us. And something came up and he couldn't come help us. So when we were finished and basically gave him the rundown of everything that had happened, he said if we would have adjusted the 4-link bars and launched the nitrous from the starting line as opposed to 60 foot, that the car would probably go 990s.
Ooh.
But once again, we're already, and they also said that 131 testifies that.
Yeah.
But the big thing is we weren't supposed to be going 10s. So, and Jeff was so, in the magazine article, Jeff was like, well, I don't want to condone that we went 10 seconds without a roll bar, so I'm just going to put in, he put 1090 something. So, but it was actually 1081, 131.
And that 1081 was actually at a 3,500 foot altitude, so that was uncorrected.
No.
Well.
I think the 1081 was corrected.
Oh, it was
I
corrected?
think.
Yeah, it was correct.
It was
think
correct.
corrected.
My
I believe
mistake.
it was.
Okay.
No, because that'd be.
Yeah.
It was corrected for altitude only.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Pretty
But-
impressive, Scott. Pretty impressive.
Thanks.
Who beat your ass out on Power Tour?
Well, I made that story up.
Well, mercifully, I just got the sign that we got to wrap this up.
Oh no! I want to have my ass kicked. So, Bob, we went to Power Tour. We were in Norwalk. We were in the tower, sitting in the air conditioning. Bob looks at me and he says, "You want to race?" And I looked at him and I said, "What?" And he said, "Do you want to race?"
With the big giant station wagon.
And I said, "You don't want any part of my car, pal. I'm going to tell you right now." And he said, "Well, let's race." And I said, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Let's go race right now." And I said, "Are you crazy?" I said,
racetrack.
"Yeah." I said, "We're on the very first stop of Power Tour. If we break something, we're screwed."
Let's break stuff.
And he
And
goes,
I acquiesced.
"Is that a math? What?
Oh,
Did you just call me something?"
yes.
At
Yes,
any
you
rate,
did.
so
Yeah,
I said, okay, you're right.
Oh. So anyway, I told Bob that was not a smart idea. So we decided to go back to Dayton early, and we were on the street, and we pulled up at a traffic light, and he was behind me, and it was about 10 o'clock on a weeknight, and I made a left-hand turn around, and now it's a long straightaway and a wide street. I nailed my car. I banged first gear. I banged second gear, and I stay the hell in it throughout third gear. And I look in my rearview mirror, and there's a station wagon about 3 inches from the back of my car. So we got back to my house, and I said, "Bob, I have a question. Were you gaining on me, or was I in your way? Because there is a difference." And he was being polite, and he said, "We're pretty even." So later in the Power Tour,
I was setting him up, is what I was.
yeah.
That's exactly what that is.
So we were at the St. Louis track, and oddly, next to the track is a straight.
The staging lanes, and they're like
Some people
6
call them
lanes
staging
wide.
lanes. Yeah, and so anyway, Bob
Plenty
was
of room
sitting
for
there,
shenanigans.
and I thought,
And they're as long as the track. They're like a half a mile.
well, I didn't want
long.
to tell people that part, but so Bob is sitting there as I come around the corner, and I thought, I know what this is. So I pulled up next to him, and I looked over, and we both took off, and he went really fast. And I just went,
I kept
pretty.
looking. Scott wasn't there.
Oh, well.
But in all honesty, Scott had a traction problem.
Yeah, I just gotten out of the
A
hospital.
lot of men
and
don't talk about
there was
that.
my knee was in a cast, and I couldn't shift a manual transmission, so I had to ask Rick to do it. And sometimes he'd be cranky and be like, "I don't want to shift that now," and I'd be like, "Come on."
It sounds like a lot of excuses.
I don't know. Ask the Magic 8 Ball.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to ask the Magic 8
Did
Ball.
Scott have a lot of excuses?
Oh, God. You can't read it.
No, I can't.
Let me see.
I don't know.
Oh, God.
It says pork.
I need to go home. So we've learned the history of ARP and the continuity of socks, or something to do with socks, and that our wagon's faster. Top. Actually, this was
Enlightening.
sure. That's what that was. When Jeff comes back, it's going to be like, when your kids light the house on fire and you come back home. It's kind of what's happening. It's kind of what's happening in the living room right now. Anyway, so Scott Sullivan, the irrepressible Scott Sullivan. More big words. I know.
That's
it's
another big
horrible.
word.
Yeah, I know it is. And of course, Bob Flooring from ARP. And I, unfortunately, am Steve Strope signing off for Jeff Smith with Car
he
Guy
was Jeff
Confessions. No, he's over there.
Brought to you by ARP.
That's right. What's your website?
ARP-bolts.com.
There it is. ARP-bolts.com. Please go there and get something for your car. And really, please, honestly, come back again. We'd appreciate that.
I won't be here.
Yeah, don't hold this against Jeff.
See y'all.